Hey everyone, it's Scott Hansen from NFL Red Zone reminding you to watch Sports Ballers, the podcast that gets you caught up on everything Washington sports and beyond.
Evening, and welcome to the latest edition of the Sports Ballers podcast. My name is Eric. We are all over the place with when we're recording these shows during the summer. We recorded last week.
And where we're recording.
Yes, in the middle of the summer, things get a little crazy. We recorded mid-afternoon last week on Wednesday, and now we're back to Mondays for the time being, even though we're going to be back to Wednesdays soon enough during the football season. And we're probably going to be doing our shows later in the evening because Corey's got cross-country practice, so I think that's fair because we got nothing better to do, so we can always make the trip out at 8 o'clock, or at least I can, and Evan can make the trip from his living room to his bedroom to do the show.
Well, pretty soon we'll be doing 7 o'clock. Once we get into the season and practice starts right after school, we'll be done a little bit earlier. But
none of this bothers me at all because I'll be here when I'm supposed to be here. I will be here 5 minutes before showtime, no matter what. I will never be here early, but I also will try not to be late. So anyway, since I'm hosting, we'll talk a little NBA stuff first. Not too much news on that front. Free agency frenzy already took place, but a little bit of interesting news. The Los Angeles Clippers traded Patrick Beverley and Hondo Onaka. Oh, wait. Rajon Rondo. Hondo Onaka is a Star Wars character. For people who don't know that reference, the mayor of Boston during the Celtics championship parade referred to him as Hondo. Like, it's thinking that was his name. So, that's always going to stick for me.
I thought he just mispronounced it. I didn't know Hondo was another person.
Hondo Onaka is a cool character if you're a Star Wars fan.
Yeah, he's annoying in Imperial Assault. Like, he's a pain in the ass. I hate dealing with him.
Well, that's awesome because he should be annoying.
But he's also kind of a plays both sides type of guy, which is
exactly what he is in the show. He's one of my favorite characters from the Clone Wars series.
Unfortunately, I've only actually seen him be a bad guy. So, although I did collect his treasure in one of the games, which is nice. Anyway, enough nerd stuff. Let's talk about sports nerd stuff. I don't get this trade. I don't know why the Clippers gave up Patrick Beverley and Rajon Rondo for Eric Bledsoe. I mean, I think that Patrick Beverley is a better player than Eric Bledsoe. I think you can make a case Rajon Rondo is a better player, at least in certain situations, than Eric Bledsoe. Bledsoe is sort of a bit of a playoff pariah, given the fact that he was the point guard of the Milwaukee Bucks in the years preceding this recent championship run. And a big part of the reason why they fell flat against the Raptors in 2019 and then really fell flat last year in the bubble was because Eric Bledsoe was not reliable in the postseason. And the Clippers are a team that has big-time postseason aspirations. Maybe not this coming season with Kawhi Leonard's injury, but at least in the relative near term, next 2, 3, 4 years, they expect to be title contenders as long as they have Kawhi Leonard and Paul George relatively close to their primes. And they gave up Patrick Beverley, who has his faults for sure. He's not a great player, but situationally he can be pretty impressive. We saw against the Mavericks he got benched because he was absolutely ineffective guarding Luka Doncic. He was too small. You could throw in a 4-letter word in between that like Luka did to describe Patrick Beverley. But then the next series he came back and he was extremely effective playing defense against the Jazz and was a nuisance for Chris Paul in the Western Conference Finals. And then Rajon Rondo's been on a lot of good playoff teams. He's always got a role to play. His game's not perfect either. We're not talking about, Steph Curry here, but these guys do have the ability to fill a role in certain situations, which is a big part of the reason why the Clippers made the run that they did, even when Kawhi Leonard was hurt, was because they had all of these guys that could step up and be a pretty formidable team even without their superstar. And they got rid of 2 of those guys for one guy who hasn't proven any of that in the playoffs. This feels like a money-saving move, and money-saving moves don't typically win championships.
Are the Clippers in a position where they need to save money right now?
You can ask Steve Ballmer about that. He's the billionaire that owns the team, but it's not going to help them make the team better, if that's what you're asking. This is strictly seems like Steve Ballmer doesn't want to pay as much luxury tax as he's going to, which that's not going to sit well with fans because nobody cares about the owner's pocketbook. Like, it's not something that anybody's interested in. If it was going to go to the team another way to make them more flexible, to be able to make the roster better in the future, then you could make a case for it, but that doesn't appear to be the way this is going to go down. And what's interesting is the deal that Kawhi Leonard signed was a 4-year extension, but it's got opt-outs, and he could easily come back maybe a season from now after he's come back from his knee injury, and if the team's inadequate, he could just walk. So I think the Clippers are playing with fire a little bit, going cheap here right after you've locked up your two best players, but left them a little bit of flexibility to get out if they're not happy. Maybe wasn't the wisest move. So, does anybody else have anything to add? Because
I don't have anything to add to that, Evan.
No, I don't have anything to add.
I do have one other question on the NBA to just see what Eric's thoughts are. So I saw that Udonis Haslem is signed on to remain with the Heat, and I didn't realize that he was still in the league. I mean, like, I remember him being a pretty important contributor to the championship teams in 2012 and 2013. This is, I guess, 19 years that he's going on with the Heat. Yep. He's been there since he got to the NBA, which means that he was there in 2006. I don't really remember him on that team. I remember watching that title run.
Yep.
I don't really remember him specifically on there, but that's 3 NBA championships for him. He's been pretty good in the past. Does this matter for the Heat really, or is this more just like it's cool because he's more likely now to retire as a one-team player?
Well, he was going to retire as a one-team player no matter what, but it seems like this is the last few years of Haslem's career. Like this season, he played like 2 minutes the entire year. He got in the last home game, and he promptly got ejected. So he got tossed.
So,
because
A, why had he not played? And 2, how did he get ejected after 2 minutes of playing time?
Well, he hasn't played because he's 41 years old, or I guess 40 maybe last year when the season started. And he's not good anymore, but he's there to basically be a member of the Heat's culture. Because we talk about the Heat culture all the time, Pat Riley and Eric Spoelstra, and he's sort of a player that reinforces that in practice. He has an impact on the younger guys. And yes, it is strange because you wouldn't expect somebody to keep a guy around on the roster pretty much just to sit on the bench. I mean, he doesn't even suit up most nights. He's usually wearing a suit.
I mean,
so why not just hire him as a coach?
If they feel, well, yeah, like I was just going to say, like, if they feel like he does provide a benefit just, to the attitude and the swagger of the team in practice and the intensity of those practices, then it makes sense to keep him around. But like you just said, why not make him a coach? And maybe it's just because even though he is in his 40s now, and so it's not, I don't know how much of a difference it really would become for if he was in a different role. There is a difference in the way that an athlete perceives instruction, criticism from somebody when it's coming from a fellow player, old as he may be, versus a coach. But I think that age has a lot to do with that. So I don't know that the role itself is necessarily the big thing. Like for me, working with cross-country athletes, I know that right now I'm still young enough that most of them still, they see me to an extent as a peer, at least enough that when I'm talking to them, it doesn't feel like a parent criticizing them and coming down on them. In another 5-10 years, that's going to slowly switch. And it'll be interesting for me to see how they respond to me at that point. But I feel like that's an age thing. So it's more about the age, less about the role. So why not make him a coach, I feel like?
Well, I'm not 100% sure that that's true. I think that there is something to be said about when you're running sprints at practice, if this guy's on the line with you versus blowing the whistle, it does make a little bit of a difference with the ability to connect with the player.
And that's fair, because I also run with my guys quite a bit, and so there is there's
there's a management versus labor situation here that definitely is a factor regardless of Haslem's age, because he is a player that people revere in Miami. And I think the most important thing is I'm not in the Miami Heat locker room, neither are you, neither are any of us. So they know what they have there, and it seems to work. So I'm not going to knock it. I'm not going to break it if it's not broken, or that's a terrible way of saying that. I'm not going to fix it if it's not broken. You can write that one down because I'm sure that'll be a title contender in a couple of hours when we finish up. So anyway, we'll move on to some other topics before we get to baseball and football. Not a ton here. A little bit of college football. I guess we'll start there. So there's a discussion that the ACC, Big Ten, and Pac-12 are considering making an alliance. All three of them. Wow, that's a lot. I imagine Evan put this in here.
Yes.
Can you tell us what's going on?
All right, so they're going to create an alliance against the other two of the Power Five, and then they're just going to vote those two off the island.
Sort of, yeah. So like the Big
Like,
12.
when I see alliance, I just think of Survivor.
That's what I thought of as well. So yeah, the Big 12. I
thought of the Alliance of American Football, the AF.
Oh, see, we always just call that AF, right? Like that's not. I never think of it as alliance, but yeah. So those three conferences are trying to align together to protect their own interests because the SEC is gobbling up all of the. Well, I mean, we talked about last week or 2 weeks ago how Oklahoma and Texas are going to the SEC.
Okay, so
like,
what does that mean to align to protect their own interests? Like, what are the interests that they're protecting? How does aligning do that? And what does an alliance look like? Like, there's still three separate conferences, or are they creating their own, like, subsidiary of the NCAA?
No. So right now it's only for, like, scheduling. So they're going to play each other more often. And then also what I had heard was something along the lines of, having a stake in how how college athletics is run. Like they're going to agree with each other more often. And since there's 41 schools in the Pac-12, ACC, and Big Ten versus only 16 in the SEC, they would have more pull in that regard.
All right, so let's say the SEC and what's left of the Big 12 were to align. Are there any other smaller Division I conferences that maybe they're not so much playing in FBS or whatever, however that works? Could they still pull in some other smaller conferences and potentially get the numbers up on this threesome?
I mean, well, the answer to all your questions is money. So I guess no.
So money-wise, obviously that's a big thing, but are the numbers there that if the money's right, it could happen?
I mean, I don't think so.
Like you'd probably need a lot more than 42 to outweigh the 41 of these three when you're talking about a lot of smaller conferences, smaller schools. But are there enough out there that what does this even do? Like this feels almost like it's waging a war on college sports or something.
I mean, yeah, it's all about influence and maintaining your piece of it. Like if the SEC just gobbles up all the big brands of college football, then college football will just be the SEC and everybody else is college football adjacent product.
Does this alliance do anything to prevent the SEC from gobbling up teams from these conferences? I mean, last week we talked about, I think, Florida State and was it Clemson?
Clemson, yes.
Who, they're considering or reportedly considering
leaving.
It wasn't reported or anything.
So
just
a rumor that
on
they were
Twitter.
considering leaving for the SEC. But let's say that rumor actually had some legs. There was some, there was some good intel there, and they actually are thinking about this behind closed doors. Does these three conferences, the ACC, Big Ten, and Pac-12, creating this alliance, does this do anything to prevent teams from these conferences from jumping ship to go to the SEC or the Big Ten or the Big 12, or to create a brand new power conference in college football?
I don't think so. Well, the Big 12, for all intents and purposes,
is dying. Yes, I get that, and that's why I bring up the idea of maybe some teams could decide, well, we don't really want to be here, but the SEC is getting too packed. There's too many teams there. It doesn't make any sense. So let's create our own power conference.
Yeah, this doesn't do anything for that, but each conference, you can't just up and leave easily. Like even Texas and Oklahoma, they have to pay $80 million each to leave in 2 years, or
Maryland
they have to wait 5 years.
Supposedly broke, and they had no problem ponying up $50 million to leave the ACC.
Well, they somehow legalese their way down to 20
Then there were
million.
lawyers.
That too.
lawyers got involved, and that
But
changes
still,
stuff.
they had no problem ponying up whatever they needed to.
The money
jump
is
ship.
always there when the
Yeah.
opportunity is there. That's something I've learned. It's
so-
like this last year with COVID, athletic departments took a bath. Like they got crushed, and yet all of them that wanted to fire their coach did. They bought him out and they didn't care because
Public
the money's
schools
always
everywhere
there.
were feeding kids 3 meals a day in some cases, and this after years of if you didn't pay this fee, then you can't eat lunch here.
Right.
So yes,
I thought
many
that was
examples of that.
interesting.
So it's all about the money, which is
Yeah.
typical for sports, particularly college football and college basketball. So more college football info that actually involves the games being played. College Game Day will be in Atlanta for week 0.
What the hell is week 0?
Like week 1 is Labor Day weekend. Sometimes they play like some nonsense games like the week
Yeah.
before.
Like a couple years ago, Florida played Miami on August
Didn't
20
Georgia
something.
Tech and Clemson play in week 0 at one point?
Can I just point out that in the
No, that was
NFL,
week 1.
if you look at their schedule on their website for the preseason,
I wish I could see anything, but you're gesturing in front of your camera the whole time.
if you look on the NFL website, their schedule, they have 4 preseason weeks because week 1 is just the Hall of Fame game. Everything we just watched is officially week 2.
Okay.
So why do we need to wait for Labor Day weekend to have week 1 of college football? Why can't we
Because
just
week
call
1 sounds so much cooler than week 2, and Labor Day weekend outside of the college football
Yo,
playoff
you're
and
still
bowl
going to
season,
have a week 1.
doesn't matter. The point is you got to make it sound like the start of something, and for the vast
The start
majority
of something
of
is
teams,
in August.
the vast majority of teams start Labor Day weekend. That is, like I said, the marquee event of the college football season outside of bowl season is Labor Day weekend. It is the equivalent of March Madness the first weekend of the NCAA tournament.
It's
It is
still
a
stupid.
big deal. So calling it week 2 makes it sound like, well, wait, we missed the start. Well, not really. You missed one crappy game where some tomato can got crushed by North Carolina is playing them.
Week
who
0
cares?
is stupid.
It's semantics. I don't think it makes that big of a difference. And I will not be watching because I don't really care to see this game. Actually, it's NC Central versus Alcorn State. So a real barn burner they got matched up for that one. Week
Those are a
1
couple
college
of
game day will be in
HBCUs.
Charlotte with Clemson going up against Evan's favorite school, the University of Georgia. So
Yeah.
that'll be.
I need to look on StubHub just to see how much a secondary market ticket for that game costs. Because,
I'm sure it's outrageous.
yeah, I mean, the Panthers Stadium only holds like 75,000 or something.
Probably get nosebleed
Only.
seats for like $750.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No
Yeah,
chance.
it's
I'd pay
gonna
money
be
to do that,
super expensive.
especially to see two teams that aren't my team. Like I don't even know who to root for because I feel like I root against.
You know who to
Georgia.
root for in
Who
this
does
game,
Clemson
Eric.
have?
Yeah, I root.
if you want to remain on this podcast and friends with one of our co-hosts, you know who to root for in this game.
I think I have enough pull to stay on the
Does
podcast.
Clemson have a good quarterback at this point?
I'm sure they do. They always do.
I mean, you struggled to say his name last week, so.
Oh yeah, that's right.
But he's making money, so that tells you he's probably pretty good.
And I don't
so.
have his name on my sheet, so I'm not going to try it now.
Yeah, we're not doing that again. We're not doing that.
I thought that I had it right at the end, and apparently I didn't.
We'll get it right by week 1, Labor Day weekend.
I
when they
eventually
play.
got Tunga Vailoa.
Yeah, but that's not as hard as this one. This one's tougher.
It is a little bit tough.
Yeah.
Yeah,
a little
this one's
bit.
definitely tougher. So anyway, college football season's coming up. I know Evan and I are excited about that. We watch a lot of college ball. Corey does not care about it that much, but And yes, Evan, I will be rooting for Clemson. I do root against Georgia as an extension of my friendship to Evan. So I root against them in everything, even in like basketball where they're not that good. Even though they got my boy Tom Crean. I love Tom Crean. He's such a dork,
You do?
but I have to root against him because Georgia. Yeah. Don't say I'm not a good buddy.
I wrote against them in
Okay.
badminton.
Okay, thanks. So before we get to the baseball and football shenanigans that we typically have in the late summer months, we got some disappointing news about tennis legend Roger Federer. He's going to be out for a good long while after revealing that he's going to need another surgery on his knee. So he's out for the U.S. Open that starts in a couple of weeks, and there's a very good chance that he's not going to be able to compete in the Australian Open in January. This is...
I mean, the fact that he's getting surgery would indicate that he definitely plans to play
Sure.
again, because otherwise, why would you do that right now?
Yeah, I think but it's still concerning just the fact that this is a guy who spent his entire career virtually never getting hurt. And now he's pushing 40. In fact, he might have already turned 40 at this point.
I think he has.
And, this is uncharted territory for tennis players. But that's been the case for the last 5 years for him.
Yeah, he
but
turned
the fact
40,
that
8 days ago.
The fact that this is a continuing problem dating back to mid-2020, where it's just like he just can't get healthy. This is what happens to older athletes, where if he was 30 and having this done, or 25, you figure, okay, he'll be back in a few months and he'll be back at the top of the game. But it feels like this is the end. And I know he's the biggest star tennis has ever had. So he's not going to want to go out on crutches. He's going to want to have something of a farewell tour, at least play one more tournament, probably Wimbledon or the U.S. Open, or at least make the run through the tour one more time before calling it. But, I mean, it does it's a bit of a wake-up call, because it's easy to lose track of the fact that these guys, not just Federer, but Nadal and Djokovic, are old. And this is an era of tennis that's been dominant for, if we're talking about Federer, for the last 18 years. And Nadal started winning 16 years ago, and Djokovic won his first major 13 years ago. So I think people might have taken it for granted just because it lasted as long as it did, that the number one guy out of that group, at least in terms of popularity, is probably going out soon. And Rafa Nadal's had his share of injuries throughout his career and currently, so his health could be in question as well. So it's kind of like, it feels a little bit like Simone Biles to me during the Olympics, when she said she was coming back for the balance beam. And to me, it was more about just being able to watch her perform one more time, more than anything, like appreciating what she did. And this is a send off for her to go out. Don't care. I couldn't have cared less if she had medaled or won gold or anything like that. I was happy that she won bronze, but I was mostly just happy that she was able to get out there and go out on her terms. And I think that that's the same thing Federer is trying to do. And I hope that he's able to do that. I'm not expecting him to come back and win majors and get back to world number one. I just want to see him play tennis a few more times.
On that note with Simone Biles, I am going to be curious to see. I mean, she, obviously she's a little bit older than you usually see most gymnasts continue to compete, but she's at such a high level right now. I feel like if she wants to, and if, she can get right mentally, we're only talking 3 years until Paris.
Yeah.
She could quite possibly continue on to then.
Yeah, it was mostly just assumed that she was done, and I think it's probably a safe bet just because 27's old and she's been doing this for a while.
Then again, there is that one woman who was competing in the gymnastics competition at this Olympics for like the 6th time. She's in her 40s.
Yeah,
not saying Simone's gonna be doing that.
Yeah,
but
so there is.
If she wanted to, I could see how she might be able to maintain her level for another 3 years.
Sure, but I just wouldn't expect it. I think most people were saying this in 2016, we knew she'd be back for the 2020 games.
Well, yeah, and I mean, I'm only rooting for it if it's something she wants.
Absolutely, there should be no pressure on her. She's done everything possible to establish herself as one of the all-time greats. She deserves to go out how she wants to go out.
Probably the all-time great.
Yeah, I think that's a reasonable. There's nothing wrong with calling her that. She's the GOAT. So we'll move on to. Let's do baseball first, because football season's coming up, and that's usually our hot topic of the
bread and butter
of the podcast. It's what we do. So we'll start with Major League Baseball. We'll get the ugly out of the way. The Baltimore Orioles have won exactly 0 games since our last show, and I think since our other last show, maybe. Just ugly stuff.
No, they won 1 since 2 shows ago.
Okay, so
they won that night.
They are, I think, 1-12 in August, which is just sheesh. 11-game losing streak along with the Cubs. That's currently tied for the longest active losing streak, I believe. Everybody's still terrible. I won't make Evan read through this list of crap that he wrote down here, because I'll do it. I'll take the heat this time. But one relatively big announcement. Chris Davis did announce his retirement on Thursday. I know that listeners have always heard us mostly criticize Chris Davis because since we started doing this podcast, he was well into his late career swoon of being just terrible. But there was a time where Chris Davis was really good and a feared hitter in the Orioles lineup, and he was a big part of the reason the Orioles had the success they had from 2012 to 2016. He was the 3rd best player on those teams in terms of just overall production. And those teams made the playoffs and won playoff series and competed for pennants. So he deserves a little bit of love from Orioles fans. I know the ending was terrible. I know the middle was mostly terrible, but there was a period of time where he was really good and really exciting to watch, and there was going to be memories that we associate with Chris Davis. It's kind of like, when you get out of a relationship, the immediate aftermath is you're kind of like, well, I'm glad that's over. But eventually you look back and you mostly focus on the good because there's no point in dwelling on the bad. With Chris Davis, there was a good amount of good in there too. And he was also a consummate pro. He was a great community guy, a great clubhouse guy. So can't knock him for that. He just fell off. He couldn't figure out how to hit. It's a shame, but good luck to him in retirement.
Yeah, Chris Davis donated $3 million to a children's hospital in Baltimore City. That directly helped the children affected with like childhood heart conditions and stuff like that. So that was good. I mean, and then in terms of on the field, I was at Chris Davis T-shirt night in 2013. The place was packed. They had like 48,000 people that night. It was a Wednesday night in May. And like they're playing Washington and just a truly electric atmosphere. Chris Davis had 2 home runs that night to help the Orioles come back and win and beat the Nationals. So
it's always interesting to see when a guy turns out on his night as far as the promotion for the park.
Yeah, it's always nice.
Oh yeah. Yeah, he got out-homered that night by Ryan Zimmerman who had 3 home runs in a losing effort.
Yeah, that's tough. You lose a game after you hit 3 bombs, but
teeing off on Chris Tillman.
Yes, ugly stuff for Chris Tillman,
just
but
laying
the
it in
got
there.
the win. Yeah, I mean, Chris Davis had a lot of other good times. Even that ridiculous pitching performance that he had at Fenway Park, where they brought him in for extra innings, and he threw basically 2 shutout frames and got the win. I mean, it was he struck out Adrian Gonzalez, who back then was supposed to be a feared hitter. So that was definitely a fun time. So the Orioles are still paying Chris Davis with some deferred money till 2037. It's not a ton enough, but
16 years from now.
Yeah, it's rough, but
I'm gonna be 45 by the time they're done paying him.
At least it won't be as long as the Mets paying Bobby Bonilla. They've been doing that for 20 years, and they still got another 11 to go. So at least he'll be off the books by then. But again, wishing Chris Davis the best. I had something else to add, but I forgot what it was already. So maybe I'll circle back to that.
This next one confuses me. That's on your guys' list for the Orioles because we talked about this during last week's show.
Yeah,
so
I know.
Has there been more
continued.
from Buster
Yes,
Olney?
there's more.
Oh God!
The trolling has continued from Buster Olney, who has tweeted twice since we last talked about him being a jerk to the Orioles and kicking the team and the fan base and the organization while it's down. Well, it continued with 2 tweets that I saw. One of which involved the Red Sox, who were floundering, much to Corey's delight. But then they get to face the Orioles, and they promptly swept them because that's what teams do to the Orioles, because the Orioles suck. And so Buster Olney basically said the Red Sox got something along the lines of the elixir they needed by getting to play the Orioles, because look how bad the Orioles are, and did I mention the Orioles suck? And then he also tweeted about how bad the Orioles have been in August, pointing out that they were 1-12, and that they had crossed the negative 200 mark for run differential for the season. And I'm just thinking, well, the Cubs are also 1-12 in August, and you know what they did, Buster? They went and traded all of their good players. A big market team that could have afforded to keep those guys around decided, hey, we're going to go out of our way to throw our team into the toilet for the foreseeable future by getting rid of every single good player we've got. And they're going to suck for a little while now. So I expect the same energy to be kept.
He doesn't care if it's a National League team, apparently.
Apparently this only applies to the American League. The American League teams are the only teams that can be held to the standard of you can't tank. And the thing is, the Orioles really didn't even tank. They just got here all by their own incompetence. So,
yes.
That's the frustrating part, is like this idea of like this morality play against the Orioles. It's like, no, dude, they tried to win. That's why they're in this mess. Because they tried to win when they had no business trying. And so they got stuck in the mud. So, enough of Buster Olney. I'm tired of that. I better not see him tweeting anything positive about the Orioles in 3 or 4 years if they're actually good. And a little bit of good news: the Orioles have been ranked as the number 2 farm system in baseball which is never happened for the Orioles before. They've never actually had a good farm system since they started tracking the quality of farm systems, because the Orioles typically did everything they could not to rebuild, and it resulted in decades of mediocrity. So this is an improvement. I mean, I'm not going to not be optimistic about having the number 2 farm system in baseball. That's where it all starts. So some other information about the baseball season. The Orioles are starting a 4-game set against the Rays. And then they got the Braves, who are hot. So this could be tough. If we record next Monday, we might not have a win.
Games.
It could be really, really unfortunate.
Yeah.
So.
Well, they're down 4-1 in St. Petersburg tonight. So,
Yikes.
starting off on the right foot here.
Yeah, this is not surprising, but
They did lead 1-0.
Did Cedric Mullins hit a home run?
No, Cedric Mullins.
That's usually how they get up.
I don't know.
Thing is,
Yeah.
Mullins hits a whole.
I'm playing Eric
Yeah.
this week though, so I don't want
He
Cedric
was
Mullins.
on
I want
base.
Trey Mancini to hit that home run.
Yeah. Whatever. So another bit of tidbit. I'm just so on fire today. You can write that one down too. This is going to be just a list of all of Eric's faux pas and misspeakings.
It's about time it happens to somebody other than me.
Yeah. Cat got my tongue this week, so what can I say? Anyway, Evan, Sean, and I attempted to go see the Bay Sox on Friday when Evan was in town, but the game got rained out. It looked like they were going to be able to get it in because the rain cleared out around 6:30. We went into the stadium.
The rain kept pushing back further though until it hit game time.
Well, it came back.
Yeah.
It's like that was not anticipated on the weather report until, it's the summertime. Things change quickly and dramatically.
Yes, they do.
And then we looked at it. It's like, yeah, it's not supposed to stop till 11. So we actually left about 25 minutes before they actually called the game, but they announced in the stadium that you could get a voucher to go see the Bay Sox at any other game. So at that point I was like, yes, let's do that. And then 25 minutes later they officially called the game for the night. So we did not get to see the Bay Sox. That was a shame. Oh yeah,
Will that count? Would that let you get to a game next year, for Evan? Because he probably won't be back
I'd
up
be
here.
surprised. I
in
think
time
it's
for
got-
I
another
gave
game
my
this
ticket
year.
to Sean.
Yeah,
So.
Evan already gave his voucher away. So
Well,
what I want,
but if it counted over to next year, I'm sure Sean would give it back to Evan.
I don't think
I
it
mean,
does.
it costs $12. I'm not.
Yeah,
overly
it's
concerned.
not really a big deal. So to circle back to Chris Davis, like I mentioned, I was actually there for the night that they did I forget what the hell the bobblehead was actually called, but it was basically Chris Davis as a superhero with his good buddy Samson, which Evan decidedly didn't want this one because Samson is, I believe, is he an English Bulldog or an American Bulldog? Either way, same thing that Uga is, and Evan just can't stand Bulldogs because of that, so Evan was not interested in that one. But I do have a Chris Davis superhero bobblehead hanging out with my Manny Machado gnome and my fully intact Zach Britton bobblehead, not broken at the ankles like certain people's. So
Yeah.
okay, we'll move to Corey's Yankees now because they've been actually pretty good lately, and they're and the thing about the Yankees is I feel like they've been playing really well pretty much since the All-Star break, and yet this is the nature of the wild card race where it's hard to close the gap even when you're winning because the teams you're trying to chase down are good, and the A's keep just keeping pace with the Yankees and not letting them close the gap. The Red Sox have fallen back a little bit, but the Red Sox are some charitable opportunities this late in the season. They've got an easy schedule, so the Yankees still got a little bit of work to do to actually get into the postseason.
I've done my best to kind of temper my excitement recently because we had 2 or 3 stretches prior to the All-Star break in the early part of the season where the Yankees really got good, and then inevitably we went back to sucking. But this has seemed to kind of sustain. It's we're not absolutely crushing it, but we're playing above 500 ball consistently since the All-Star break, and at this point it's been long enough. I'm allowing myself to start feeling a little bit of excitement. So short week for us. Recording last Wednesday, so we've only played 4 games, but we are 3-1 in that stretch. We lost the Field of Dreams game last was that Wednesday or Thursday? Thursday. But then we had the off day Friday, continued the series against the White Sox and won the last 2 games of that series. So we ended up winning that series. Got a busy week this week, 8 games in 7 days, because today they have the Angels in a makeup game from back early July. And then tomorrow is a doubleheader against Boston because we had to make up a game from like a month ago. We'll play them a third time on Wednesday, and then we'll have a 4-game set against the Twins after that. So big series against Boston. Boston obviously got the lift by playing the Orioles. That kept them ahead of us. But, we've whittled that lead down to 2.5 games. And, Eric just said, when you're late in the season, you're in that wild card hunt. One of the tough things is that you're going up against other teams that are good, and it's tough to chase them down. But if there's a team who has, had a little bit of a propensity in the past decade or so of blowing leads in the playoff race late in the season, the Red Sox are one of those teams. So, we could catch and pass Boston on this series. I'm not expecting that because we have not played particularly well against Boston this year, but they are floundering a little bit, and we're pretty hot lately. So hopefully we can at least win 2 of the 3 games against them and have a good series against the Twins and maybe close and eliminate that gap. The 5.5 games that we're back of Tampa Bay, we've closed that by a 1.5 games in the past week, but I don't really see us closing that down. Tampa Bay has just been they're too good.
Yeah, they're not falling.
I'm not saying that we couldn't potentially beat them in a playoff series. I don't really see us catching them within the division down the stretch of the season.
Yeah, that's a tough gap to close. I feel like the Yankees' big issue though is every time it seems like they've turned the corner, they play the Red Sox, and it kind of is a litmus test of are they for real this time or not. And in the early part of the season, they kept getting swept, and so it's like, oh well, the Yankees are right back to 500 and 7 games back.
We finally did win a game against them in the last series, but then we lost the other 2.
Yeah, but I think but the Yankees won a 2 or a 3-game set against the Red Sox just after the All-Star break, and then they promptly lost 3 out of 4, I think. So that's really what it's going to come down to is can the Yankees get over whatever's bugging them about the Red Sox? And it should be noted the Red Sox did get Chris Sale back, so that's going to be a big help to their pitching staff, which had sucked in this stretch, which is a big part of the reason why they were falling apart. So they kind of have a little bit of a stopper back at there, which is huge for teams trying to avoid going into tailspins late in the season. But
yeah, on the Yankees side though, you got Aaron Judge, who's having a really good stretch over his last 8 games. He's hitting .375, slugging .844. He's got 4 home runs in that stretch. He was on the COVID list, and between that and just his injury history of the past several seasons, it feels like he hasn't really been consistently in the lineup for us, not to mention just, he wasn't playing at a particularly high level for a good part of the early part of the season. But he has played in 103 of 117 Yankees games so far this year, so he has stayed largely healthy. He's playing really well right now. If he can continue that this week, that's going to be good for us. We've got Garrett Cole, who's being activated off of the IL, and he's supposed to start, I believe, tonight's game against the Angels. Jordan Montgomery is expected to return to the rotation tomorrow in one of the 2 games against Boston. Gary Sanchez might be back tomorrow. Catchers usually only play 1 game of a doubleheader anyway, not to mention he's coming back from COVID, and he did deal with some symptoms. But, he could play in one of those games. But, elsewhere, kind of a mixed bag on the injury front. Luis Severino suffered a setback, some right shoulder tightness, caused him to be pulled from his minor league assignment on Friday. He was supposed to get an MRI today. I haven't seen any news for that because I had practice this afternoon. But hopefully those results came back negative, and hopefully he hasn't suffered too big of a setback. Anthony Rizzo's return is still to be determined because he dealt with very severe symptoms of COVID and couldn't really do anything for the first week of his stint on IL. But Aaron Boone says he's hopeful that he won't need too much time to get game ready, so maybe by the end of the week. Aroldis Chapman is expected to be back sometime this week, though probably not in time for any of the 3 Red Sox matchups. Domingo Germán expects to be back within the next 2 weeks, but I'd just as soon have him go somewhere else other than New York, or maybe just not play baseball anymore, period. Put him on the same list that Trevor Bauer is on and keep moving the needle on him. And then with Gleyber Torres and Gio Urshela, we're still looking at a good amount of time probably before they return to the lineup. So a little bit of a mixed bag, but we've got some pieces coming back this week, which is good for us. And yeah, I mean, like Eric said, we've been playing pretty well recently, and hopefully that continues.
Yeah, you should be pretty happy with the fact that Anthony Rizzo, you acquired him at the trade deadline. He gets hot. He misses time. The Yankees continue to win because the other guy they acquired, Joey Gallo, keeps hitting bombs. Like
he does.
After the first week with the Yankees where he didn't really do a whole lot, he's picked it up.
Yeah,
So
Rizzo was the one I was excited to get. I mean, nothing against Gallo. He's a
Gallo's
good
better
player.
but
But I was really excited about Rizzo. But Gallo's been great.
I don't know why, because Gallo's better. But and on Judge,
He had a home run tonight.
Yeah, he did. He's the reason why the
We have
Yankees
plenty
are
of
up
outfielders,
2-1.
though. That's the main thing. Is
Yeah, but he's still a guy that hits piss missiles and moonshots, so
that's true.
you can't complain about that. And
not at all.
like for Aaron Judge, like you mentioned, he's played 103 out of 117 games. Normally, I would make a snide comment about that. It's like, yeah, he still missed 14 games. Most people consider that a sort of injury-ravaged season, whereas Aaron Judge, it's a high-water mark. But a lot of it was because of COVID, and COVID is sort of we presume, we hope, we pray that this isn't going to be something that happens 5 years from now, 3 years from now. If you're missing games because of COVID, it's not necessarily going to be a pattern down the road.
Right.
So it's good to see that Judge has, injury-wise, been clean this year.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of those other games have just been routine days off. I mean,
Sure.
I feel like this year we're seeing a lot more of those routine days off for players around the league, just in general. I know I'm seeing it from everybody in my fantasy lineup. It drives me nuts.
It's people, especially coming off the shortened season last year, where this is sort of a get right season in a lot of ways. So people are playing it safe.
Yep.
So let's talk about the Field of Dreams game now, because this relates to the Yankees. I thought that
Aaron Judge hit 2 home runs.
Yes, he did, and the Yankees got walked off in the corn, which I didn't expect that to happen. When Judge hit the home run to cut it to 1, I was like, okay, Liam Hendricks is the most overrated closer in the league. Like he's
driving me crazy lately.
Yeah, he's on your team, so that sucks. But like he gives up a lot of saves. Like he's blown 6 of them for a guy that's an esteemed all-star. That's a lot. And I was like, okay, once he gave up the homer to Judge, and then he walked. Who did he walk after that? I can't remember. Was it Gallo? I think it was Gallo. And then Stanton took him yard to put the Yankees ahead. I was like, oh, well, this is kind of what I expected. And then Zach Britton came in, and our former boy promptly gave up a 2-run Oppo Taco to Tim Anderson, who did all the great things, pimped the hell out of that
double in
home
that
run.
game, too. That frustrating because he's on Evan's team, and I was playing against him.
Yeah.
My boy Tim Anderson, I'm telling you.
Ugh.
I love Tim Anderson. He's awesome.
He is cool.
So I kind of want to talk about the game
Tim
itself.
Anderson right here. Yes, indeed.
Yes, the event of the Field of Dreams game, which, to be honest, I don't care for Field of Dreams as a movie. It's kind of before my time. It came out before I was born.
I've always liked it, primarily because my family has roots in Iowa, and
Sure.
I've been out there and I've visited the Field of Dreams multiple times.
Yeah, but I look at it and I'm like, okay. I kind of like when they first said that they were gonna play a game in the cornfield in Iowa. I was like, that sounds cool. That sounds interesting. It's playing to some.
But then it
nostalgia.
wasn't actually at the Field of Dreams. It was like a mile down the road.
I didn't care about that.
It wasn't a mile. It was adjacent. It was right next to it.
Was it?
In the same cornfield, yes.
I had to. I cared more about the aesthetic, but then I see Kevin Costner out there, and I'm like, and all the players are coming through the corn, shaking
Your
his
favorite
hands.
Razzie winner.
Yeah, 4-time Razzie winner. As all the players come to the court, shaking his hand like he's like a war vet or something like that. I'm like, this dude's an actor in the movie. He didn't actually plow the field, guys. You're not playing on his field. It just got a little cheesy for me. But at the same time, again, as a guy that doesn't care for Field of Dreams and as somebody that has a little bit of an understanding of how younger people operate, most young people don't really care about Field of Dreams because they haven't seen the movie. It's not really from their era. And so this kind of appealed more to an older crowd. That all being said, this is a great idea. Like, this kicked ass because baseball has close to 2,500 games that matter every season. And the only ones that they actually make an event are the playoff games. You've got 2,400 regular season games, and nobody cares about a singular one of them except for if their team's playing. This made people want to watch baseball in late August when nobody cares about baseball. They're waiting for football to start at that point. These are the dog days of summer. I think Major League Baseball needs to make this happen more frequently. It doesn't always have to be this. It could be this, a different idea. I mean, there's all kinds of things you can do to make an individual baseball game more lively. And if it doesn't work, or if it kind of makes things weird, again, it's 1 out of 2,400. So I think that drawing more attention to the sport that way is an idea, because that's sort of the biggest asset baseball has, is volume. And they kind of make it a negative because people say, oh, there's too many games, they take too long, and none of them feel like that big of a deal. Well, then make a game every couple of weeks or every month feel like a big deal, and people will be interested.
That said, I mean, you might want to try and find some things that maybe appeal to a younger audience. So, to that point, I mean, the 2 games set between the Yankees and the Red Sox a couple of years ago in London, were really exciting.
Yeah, it was cool.
Those were really fun. I mean, obviously there was the hour-long first inning where both teams scored 6 runs, and it was ridiculous. It was just a slugfest. What was the final score of that game? I don't even remember.
I love it when that happens. When
it was ridiculous.
You take the sport somewhere else that doesn't have baseball, and the first thing they see is just an absolute slugfest that never ever happens, and it's like, wow, this sport's really exciting. I'm like, dude, it's not usually like this.
No,
this is not
the second game was not that bad. It was still pretty high scoring all told, more high scoring than most games, but it wasn't that bad.
Yep.
But do a Sandlot game.
Yeah, that could be fun.
I don't know exactly where that would be, but do something like that. I agree with Eric. I mean, you need, with a sport like this that struggles so much to appeal to a younger audience, you need events like this to get interest up during the season. Because, we complain all the time about how little the regular season matters in the NBA, or even to an extent in hockey. Matters more in hockey than in the NBA, I would argue, but still, when so many teams make the playoffs, how much does the regular season really matter? And some people might argue that in Major League Baseball, even though fewer teams make the playoffs, the fact that there's twice as many games, still the regular season doesn't matter. I couldn't disagree more, because the fact that there's fewer playoff teams is what makes it matter. That's why it was so important that we not expand to 8 playoff teams permanently in Major League Baseball. But it is a lot of games. It's a slog to get through the season. So anything you can do like this that can drum up some interest in the middle of the season, if it's once a month, if it's twice a month, if it's every other month, just something to increase people's excitement for the game.
Yeah, and to your point, Corey, you said the Yankees and the Red Sox played in London. Well, in 2020, the Cubs and the Cardinals were supposed to play a series in London, but 2020 happened, so there goes that.
Hopefully next year they can get back to that, because I'd like to see that be an every year thing. I'd like to see them do. I mean, we used to have a series in Japan at the beginning of the season. I say move that later in the year. Don't do it right off the start, because I mean, it's early and people are interested, but do something like that in the middle of the season when people are starting to lose interest. Have a series.
5 a.m.
Sure. Have a series in Mexico City.
Yeah.
Have a series in Berlin.
Go back to Puerto Rico again.
Sure.
I'd love to see how far the ball could fly in Mexico City. They are well above sea level there.
Oh, yeah.
My goodness.
It's like 7,500 feet.
Yep.
Did they end up playing that game in Mexico City in the NFL a couple years ago?
They played one in 2017, where it was the Patriots and the Raiders, and Tom Brady absolutely lit them up. But they were supposed to play Rams versus Chiefs, Super Bowl 51.5.
But they had issues with the field, I think.
Yeah,
right?
the field
Shakira destroyed the field a couple weeks before.
Yeah.
So they moved the game back to, I think they played in LA
Coliseum.
And that was a great game.
Yeah, while the entire state of California was on fire, they moved the game back to the Coliseum.
But that was a great game.
They had the best regular season game we've had in a long, long time.
Maybe ever. Certainly in our lifetimes, I think.
It was wow. That was just an incredible, and we thought it was a Super Bowl preview. It damn near was, because the Chiefs almost won the AFC Championship game that year, and the Rams unjustifiably won the NFC Championship.
And then the Super Bowl was not nearly as exciting as
the
that
Super
game
Bowl was terrible. It was lowest scoring Super Bowl of all time after one of the highest scoring regular season games ever, which could have been potentially a rematch. But hey,
goodness.
That's the way.
Also
it goes.
on baseball this week is the MLB Little League Classic. The Angels and the Indians are playing in Williamsport, Pennsylvania. And they're going to have Little League players in the stands. They're going to interact and mingle and stuff.
Is
Should
the
be a
Little
fun
League team
time.
also going to change its name after this season?
The Little League team?
Yeah, the Indians.
What?
Wait, are you talking about?
You're talking about the Cleveland Indians playing.
Oh, you're talking about the actual team. I thought you were talking about a Little League game.
Well,
No.
they're playing at Williamsport where the Little League World Series takes place.
Oh.
But it's a major league game. They did it last year too, or
Oh.
not last year, 2 years
2
ago.
years ago.
Yeah.
The Orioles and the Red
I'm
Sox were
assuming
supposed to be in it last year.
moved the fences back for the big leader.
Of course, they play on a
They're
major
playing
league field.
at a minor league park.
Yeah, they play on a professional field. They don't play. They
It's
also
a minor
don't.
league park, so it probably is shorter fences.
They also don't have 60-foot bases, Corey. Like they play on a real field. So anyway, that's always a fun event as well, despite Corey's efforts to derail it and deride it. So we'll move on to our last baseball topic. Fernando Tatis, the face of Major League Baseball, I don't care what anybody says, comes back, plays right field, and crushes 2 dongs and a double in his return. What a beast.
What a game for him.
Yeah.
He's just a dog.
And you know what's wild is this happened. I think that I didn't really know what to make of it, like how to take it when they said the Tatis has hit a home run in all 3 of his returns from the IL. And I'm like, okay, what's more impressive, the fact that he hits a home run every time he comes back, or is it annoying the fact that he's been on the IL 3 times? But regardless, he was out there last night just crushing home runs and being awesome. And frankly, I think it's time to cut the crap. He's the MVP of the National League. Bryce Harper was getting some traction, which I was kind of taken aback by that a little bit. I was like, I mean, Bryce Harper's had a good season, and he's been hot lately, but I was like...
He's top 20 in WAR, but
I think he's
not
moved up since that
top
point.
15, I don't think.
Yeah, he might be top 15 among position players now, but he's still not in Fernando Tatis' class. And people would say stuff like, well, Tatis has missed so much time. Bryce Harper's missed a lot of time, too. Like, if Tatis has missed about 30 games, Harper's missed 20. So it's not like Harper's played the full season. And we also have a metric that tells us, okay, how valuable are you, which depends on you being out there. You don't accumulate wins above replacement by not showing up. And Tatis leads National League position players in WAR, despite missing that much time. And assuming he stays healthy for the last month and a half of the season, I think it's his award to lose. I think Max Muncy has a case, but his numbers mostly rely on the idea that he's somehow the greatest first baseman defensively that we've seen in a generation, which I'm sorry, I don't really buy that, but
don't either.
But that's what fielding metrics do. From year to year, they're a little wonky. You have to get a bigger sample than that to really trust them. So if you're relying on defensive metrics to make your case over Tatis, I think you're barking up the wrong tree. So to me, Tatis is the MVP. I'm glad he's back. He's fantastic. He's fun to watch. He's a great dude. All of the above. Checks all the boxes. Let's do some football.
He put up with Joe Buck in the All-Star game.
Oh yeah, Joe Buck, and he was very patient.
He deserves the MVP just for that.
Yeah, that was again, we love Joe Buck, but that was not a great. And I don't really even blame Buck for it. I blame the situation.
Yeah.
Like it's just Buck had to do that, and it was just not great.
But still, for Tatis to put up with it.
Yeah, it was.
Kudos to him.
Yeah, yes indeed. So let's move on to football, unless anybody has any baseball stuff that they want to get to.
No. I'm just impressed that we're still under an hour in the show right now.
I'm keeping it rolling.
Yeah, you are.
I may be fumbling with the words every once in a while, but I'm avoiding the obnoxious tangents that we're known for. Although football is coming up. That's where we lead the world in tangents.
Yes, we do.
So hold on to your butts. Let's just say that. So preseason week 1, not week 2, the Hall of Fame game happened, and then week 1 happens, and whatever. Week 0 is stupid. Corey, I'm Corey. I'm on my high horse about college football that I don't watch. Anyway, let's talk about the Washington football team first. Just get them out of the way with. They played the Patriots, and I didn't get to see much of the game. I know Chase Young had a sack. I assume he looked great because he's great.
I think he forced a fumble on that sack too.
Yeah, he was great. So that's awesome. Ryan Fitzpatrick played a little bit. Based on what I saw from the box score, it was pretty uneventful. Not a whole lot happened.
Taylor Heineke looked pretty solid from the little bit of playing time he got.
The bottom line is it's week 1 of preseason,
Yeah.
so there's not really a ton of takeaways, but there's reason to be optimistic for the team this year, assuming that the quarterback position is not a complete tire fire like it usually is. If Ryan Fitzpatrick can play decent ball, and if he turns into Fitztragic, if Heineke can come in and play decent ball, this team could be in contention for the NFC East again.
I think the biggest takeaway I had from that game was on the Patriots side. Cam Newton didn't look great, but looked okay.
Yeah.
And Mac Jones didn't really look like a first-round quarterback.
I thought he made some throws.
He made a couple throws, but he didn't look like a first-round quarterback. He did not look like the starter.
I'll repeat what Dominique Foxworth said on HQ today, is that he at least showed that he could hit receivers when they were open by NFL standards versus the Alabama standards that we saw last year, where he was throwing to wide open Devontae Smith,
Trophy winners,
Jalen Waddle. All these dudes were just wide open down the field all the time. It's like this game, he actually had to make some anticipatory throws, and he did sometimes. Now, that doesn't mean he's going to do it forever, but he at least showed that he's going to be able to play quarterback in the NFL, and I think
we saw Daniel Jones make better throws in his
that is
season.
a totally fair point. Daniel Jones was Danny
we
Dimes.
See what he's become.
Yeah, he's a fumbling machine. Yeah, there's absolutely nothing wrong with what you just said. You are 100% right. But I will say, we're talking preseason week 1. None of it really matters that much.
Sure.
I'm just going with what I saw. I'm not prognosticating based on that.
I want to stick to my guns this time that Mac Jones is not going to be good because I kind of
you wavered on Daniel Jones.
I wavered on Daniel
and it didn't work
Jones,
out.
and then he ended up sucking. I was like, man, I should have just stuck to it because apparently I was right from the get go, and then I decided to waffle.
Yeah, because this guy looked great, and it's like, dude,
he did. He looked amazing in his rookie preseason.
Yeah, well, although to his credit, he's going into year 3 right now, so he still has a chance, to maybe prove himself as a franchise type of guy.
Sure.
But, I don't. I'm leaning no as of right now, but things can change. So, Evan, what's going on with the Baltimore Ravens?
The Ravens won their 18th consecutive preseason game, 17-14, over your New Orleans Saints.
Yep.
So that's 18 straight wins. Coincidentally, that's how many straight losses the Orioles could have by our next show.
Yeah, thanks, Corey.
You're welcome.
Backup quarterback Trace McSorley has wrenched his back by lifting a box at his home and will be out the rest of the preseason. So this might be it for Trace McSorley. I mean, if you can't play in the preseason, you might not be around.
What was in the box?
Wrenches.
I don't know.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I don't know. So I mean, I think that's critical for Trace McSorley that he actually plays and proves that he should be the backup quarterback on this team. Robert Griffin III retired, I believe, or wasn't brought back or something.
He's going into the booth, baby. Yeah. Apparently, he's excellent there, which doesn't surprise me. He's always been a smart, interesting guy to listen to, especially when he was roasting Kirk Cousins last year, which was just so good. Like,
really?
It was excellent. You gotta, I'll send you guys the YouTube link.
It was pretty fun.
It was entertaining, especially because there's some level of disdain
players.
there.
Yeah. There had to be some beef.
Oh yeah,
there,
absolutely.
right?
Yeah, that's part of why it was so funny.
Well, the funny thing is, if you had asked me 3 years ago about an RG3 Kirk Cousins beef, I would have been Team Kirk all the way.
Oh, absolutely.
But Kirk's proven himself to be a complete idiot, so I'm kind of just like, I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna lean RG3.
Play football with plexiglass around me.
Oh my god. I'm gonna have a Pope Mobile taking me around practice instead of just getting a couple shots. Like,
yeah.
Oh my god, what a clown.
Dumbass.
So so it looks like it's gonna. I think it's Tyler Huntley. I want to call him Nick Huntley, but I'm pretty sure it's Tyler.
Yeah,
Nick Huntley played for the Orioles in 2014.
Yes.
So next week the Ravens are at the Panthers on Saturday night at 7:00. I was stuck in a whole bunch of traffic this past Saturday, and didn't get back to the Atlanta area till right as the Ravens game was ending, so I missed this one.
Yeah, I missed most of the ball team game. I caught some replays or some highlights.
Yeah, I caught some highlights as well.
But yeah, I missed most of preseason week 1, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, a whole bunch of this stuff is irrelevant.
Well, especially week 1 when the starters, the projected starters are only getting a series or two, and even the other players who are competing for a starting spot are only getting a series or two. So like week 2, I'll try and watch a little bit more of probably.
I feel like they could cut the preseason down again to like 2 games.
Well, I think that's the plan down the road eventually if they move to an 18-game season.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
And like the guys who are locks to make the team really shouldn't be allowed to play in the preseason. Like the preseason games are just exhibitions so that, the stadium operation has been practiced one time.
There is something to be said to like, experiencing game speed and getting hit and stuff. I mean, like,
So what are you practicing for?
well, the problem is that so many of the rules surrounding practices have changed over the past decade to where you're very limited in how much practice time you can spend in pads and actually full contact. I mean, that's one of the reasons why was it Campbell was getting in so much trouble because like he's kind of flirting with that
Campbell?
line, Dan Campbell.
Campbell.
Yeah, he's like flirting with that line, potentially actually passing that line and having too many of those sorts of practices. Like they might end up getting punished.
I mean,
Oh,
if you
well, I
go
mean,
up to
when
the
Matt-
line and don't cross it, you didn't break the rules. So
Right,
it seems pretty straightforward to me. You have X amount of time that you can have practice in pads. If you
Well, the thing is, I don't know if
exceed
they've
it.
actually stayed on the right side of that line.
Well, the NFL's got to figure that out. That's their job.
Yep.
I mean, when Matt Patricia was hired, he was saying a whole bunch of stuff about toughness and we're going to practice in pads 17 times a week and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
You're not allowed to
which
do
is
that.
against the rules.
Which I feel like might be a reason why injuries at least seem to be happening at a higher rate these days. But I also haven't seen a lot of evidence to support that. So
I think
I
last year
don't know
can be
I don't know
chalked
how
more
much
to-
truth there is to that.
I feel like last year is more about the lack of a real training camp than
And that's possible.
anything like that. So like last year's probably a big blip as far as injuries that we saw, but
But still, like you
You
need
gotta
to
see
have
some
those
trend
reps.
data,
You need
yeah.
you need to have contact. You need to retrain your body to take a hit and to go down properly when you're being tackled.
yeah, I
So,
agree
okay.
with all that. But I also know that college teams have no preseason. They roll the ball out there week 1 and they go. So I
They
think
also
that-
aren't taking quite as vicious of hits, generally speaking.
That's true. That's all a fair point. I'm just saying that it's not like you have to worry about the teams just going out there and looking like crap because they haven't practiced enough. They got plenty of practice time. It's a matter of contact.
They just look like crap because they're college teams.
yeah, especially the ones that are stuck playing Alabama week 1. Doesn't matter
I
who
mean,
you are, you're getting
Who knows?
dropped.
I think Alabama's got Miami week 1, so
They're gonna turn
that'll be an
One or
L
week
for
0?
the Hurricanes.
Not week 0. Week 0 is a boring game, Corey. Okay, so let's get into a little bit of the rookie quarterbacks that made their debuts. We talked a little bit about Mac Jones, and interestingly enough, Mac Jones was the highest rated rookie quarterback by PFF this week. Pro Football Focus.
What
had-
about does Football Outsiders do anything during preseason?
No. I
Oh.
don't think so. They don't record like DVOA or anything like that. This is just Pro Football Focus's scouting grades and stuff
Okay.
like that. So it's it's based purely off of performance. And of course, we know that PFF grades are not infallible by any means. And for guys that played 1 or 2 series, it's a really small sample size, so it doesn't mean a whole lot. But nevertheless, Mac Jones was the top ranked rookie with, I think, he had like an 82.6 or something like that, which isn't bad. But again, not something I would expect to sustain itself throughout the regular season.
No.
And that's no shade at Mac Jones. That's just most rookies never have that good of a season as a rookie.
Well, I'll put it as shade to Mac Jones because I did not see an 82 on the field.
Yeah, Corey thinks
on
Mac Jones is a
Thursday.
bum, so there you go. But since we talked
I
about
think
him
he's
already,
a
let's
bum,
get to Trevor Lawrence, number 1 overall pick. I thought Lawrence looked fine.
He's a little shaky at the very beginning, but he
Yeah.
kind of cleaned things up, I felt like.
I feel like he held on to the ball too long, which is one of the things. Again, Trevor Lawrence is an interesting case, kind of like Zach Wilson, where we didn't really bother to, go over his tape with a fine-tooth comb because we knew he was going number 1. So you're kind of just like, yep, number 1 overall pick. He's going to Jacksonville. Let's move on. So we didn't really see, okay, how good is this guy? What are some of his weaknesses? Because we knew where he's going to end up. But he wasn't a perfect quarterback. Nobody is. Like, there's no such thing as a perfect prospect.
Well, I mean,
Everybody's got their struggles.
I did when I was scouting these players for our draft show. One thing that I pointed out was that he did with Clemson have a tendency to lose track of pressure at times.
Yeah, and he got away with it at Clemson because he's the biggest and fastest guy on the field.
Yeah.
But That's not gonna be the case in the NFL.
No,
so.
he's going to have, defensive linemen and linebackers who are going to run, step for step with him and track him down.
Yeah, but he's got a hand cannon on his arm.
does.
And my goodness, that dude could sling it. And it looks so easy when he throws the ball. Like he still looks like a little bit of a man among boys as a quarterback because he's so big and strong and impressive looking that when he actually goes to uncork a pass, the throw doesn't even look that cool. But then you realize he just ripped that ball 30 yards on and out, and you're like, wow, that was a really high-level throw that he made. So, I mean, I think he's going to be fine. Obviously, he's going to have growing pains. He's playing for a bad team. I wouldn't expect the Jaguars to be a surprise playoff team or anything like that. I think that they're going to have their struggles, but
I don't know about that.
I mean, it's possible, but it's not probable.
The Jaguars have Cupcake City for their schedule. Like, they finished in last place and deservedly so last year, but they get the Bengals this year. I mean, they get a last place schedule, and then their division is garbage on top of that, right? Like the Colts, their best lineman and their quarterback is injured with the same foot injury mysteriously.
Yeah, but that's actually going to help them most likely.
well, not the lineman part, but the quarterback.
The quarterback part.
Okay.
I don't know, though. They haven't really
They're going to start
replaced
Jacob Eason, who's a bum, or some
Sam
other guy.
Ehlinger.
Who's the other guy?
Sam Ehlinger, who lost to Maryland.
They might bring in Nick Foles.
They haven't yet. It
haven't
doesn't seem
yet.
like that's the
Okay.
plan.
Well, I mean, Nick Foles is on the Bears currently.
What about the Texans, Evan? Are you excited about the Texans?
No, they could go. They could be the first 0-17 team ever.
Do you think Deshaun Watson's going to play for them?
Not a single snap.
I don't think so either.
If Evan did, then I would be very upset by him saying that they're going to go 0-17.
Yeah.
Like, Deshaun Watson is worth a win at least.
Yeah, personal problems aside, the man can sling the ball a little bit.
Yeah, he's a good football player, but, he's done some bad stuff off the field, and he's probably not going to play.
That's probably true.
Yeah.
Probably all very true.
We got the Titans to deal with, though.
Yeah, the
Their
Titans.
defense is bad and got worse.
I don't know if it got worse.
They lost their offensive coordinator, too.
Yeah, that's true. They did.
Yeah, but they
lose.
got Julio.
But they got Julio.
Okay. Well, I mean, the Jags' sneaky division winner pick.
They went 1-15 last year.
No.
It could happen.
No, it couldn't.
Okay, PJ.
JP.
JP. Yeah, okay.
No, it
just
couldn't,
saying.
Evan.
JP? I
It-
thought it was
it-
PJ.
it's not-
JP. It's definitely JP.
All right, you've seen the movie.
It's not
but-
outside
I
the
trust
realm
you
of
enough, I know.
possibility. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying they're definitely going to win. You heard it here first. I'm just saying, like, keep an eye out for the Jags a little bit.
I think I won't. But I am interested to see.
I'll keep an eye on them when Trevor Lawrence is on the field because I'm sure that we'll see plenty of him on Red Zone this year.
I'll tell you when they won't make the playoffs is if Tim Tebow's out there trying to block because
Good Lord. It's like a bullfighter
William
out there.
Massimini was right. He did technically get the job done.
No, he did not get the job done. The dude over pursued. That was not Tim Tebow. Tebow did not finish that play. Come on. That was. And it was funny thing is on the announcer actually said, "Well, Tebow did his job." I'm like, he didn't have a job to do. The dude over pursued. Like, and the funny thing is that wasn't even actually his worst block. Like his worst block came on the next play. So
I didn't see that.
yeah,
one.
like he just didn't touch anybody. He just was kind of wandering around. He looked like, and again, this is not to shade Tebow because we don't think he's a professional athlete. We've said that for a long time, but this is what it
By
would
the
look like
official
if
definition, he is getting paid.
right, but he's not actually good enough to be a professional athlete, and so it looked like a guy that had no idea what he was doing. It looked like something that I would do out there. Trying to block where I'm just kind of like running around like, okay, I gotta put hands on somebody and I'm slow and I'm not very big. Even though apparently he's gotten all beefy and stuff.
He's pretty big.
Like,
He's massive
he still
now.
looks tiny. Like he looks tiny out there playing tight end. He looked like
The NFL, man.
yeah, he looked like just unbelievably small, and I was like, that's not gonna cut it, especially for a 33-year-old that's not very fast. So I'm not a believer in the Jaguars. I am interested to see them play the Bengals, so we get a little rematch of the championship game from 2019 with Burrow and Trevor Lawrence going head to head. But
So how did
Like
Zach
Jamar
Wilson look with the
Chase?
Jets?
That's right, Jamar Chase. Zach Wilson did not look as bad as advertised by the Jets from camp, because everybody was saying how bad he looked and how he was throwing all these picks and he looked like trash. And he went out there and he played okay. Now, I think part of it was because the Jets knew that there was a bunch of bad pub about him, and so they kind of tried to script the plays to make it easy for him so that he wouldn't have to make high-level throws, so that way he could go out there and at least, pat on the back, said he had a nice game, just to keep the media machine at bay. And I think that was a smart move, because you don't want to have the number 2 overall pick getting all this heat for being terrible and then going out there and looking like crap in his first game where the cameras are on. So, again, not much to draw from that. I was not that high on Zach Wilson. I thought he was kind of a little bit of a system quarterback at BYU. I know he's got some athleticism. He's got a decent arm.
That's kind of what BYU is for football.
Right. So that's so I have my questions about him, and but again, week 1 preseason, you can't draw. You can make up anything to convince yourself that you were right, or maybe talk yourself into being wrong in your case with Daniel Jones. But it's just, if you want to see something, you can see it in week 1 preseason, because it's just, none of it really matters until the games start.
Yeah, everything's made up and the points don't matter. What I liked about Zach Jones,
Zach Wilson.
Hugh Jackson hasn't come over to visit and watch the tape, but I liked what he said about when he commented about how many interceptions he was throwing in practice. His quote was, "I can't be afraid to make mistakes, especially in practice. This isn't a game. This is where I'm learning what I can and can't get away with, what I can get away with and what I can't." That's what he said. So I got a sense of some real poise out of him. Some maturity. I sound like an old man talking about some young guys. Oh, he's maturing and whatever. But he looks like he's 12 years old. But what he said in this quote seems to be of someone who's been a professional for a long time and, is handling some criticism. And there's going to be no shortage of criticism when you play for the New York Jets.
How about probably the guy who I thought would have had a higher PFF grade than Mac Jones was Justin Fields.
Yeah, Fields looked really good. His first couple of drives were a little shaky, but
oh my God,
he seemed like he's settled in, and what's Evans sighing over there about? God.
The Orioles are down 8-1. Apparently, somebody clanked the ball in the outfield that led to an inside the park home run. Paul Fry is out there just giving up huge dogs, as he is wont to do lately. Yeah, what is happening? Ugh.
Okay, well, I'm going to continue talking about Justin Fields now.
Yes, please do.
Had this aside of Orioles misery, which is typical. Again, he looked really good. He made some nice throws. He showed that athleticism that was a big part of why people thought he had such high upside. And Chicago fans are going nuts, man. They're excited, maybe a little too excited. It's an interesting scenario because I think he's clearly a better player, or at least has certainly more potential this season than Andy Dalton. Like, without a doubt, I think he's going to be a better player for them. But at the same time, everybody's always want to treat the rookies with kid gloves and stuff like that. But I also kind of get it when week 1 is against Aaron Donald and the Rams. Like, do you want to throw them into that fire where they're probably going to get their asses kicked? Because let's be honest, the Bears' offensive line is a bit of a mess. They've got Allen Robinson, who's great. They have David Montgomery, but he's banged up. So there might be a situation where they say, you know what, let's give it a couple of weeks. Let's get through the first couple of weeks. Let's get healthier before we bring out the rook, because we don't want to send him into a complete crapshoot of a situation where we don't know what the hell's going to happen.
I mean, I feel like the rookie should start right away. Like, you drafted him in the first round to play. But I mean, with that being said, if your offensive line is bad, this guy's supposed to be the future of the franchise. You don't put him in harm's way when you don't have to. Looking at the Bengals, for example. the giant scar on Joe Burrow's knee, right? Like you obviously don't want that to happen to anybody.
No, you do not.
Particularly your future franchise quarterback.
Yep, I agree with all of that. So the Bears have to figure out how to play that, even though there might be riots in the street of Chicago if Andy Dalton's starting week 1. But
imagine being a Bears fan. You haven't had a good quarterback in 100 years, and suddenly you get one. Like, you don't know what to do with yourself.
yeah, I get why they're so excited. It's just, but they're also fans. Like, you can't make your decisions based off of purely what the fans want to see. You got to do what's in the best interest of your organization. So,
I mean, yeah. I mean, these are the same people that drafted Mitchell Trubisky.
yes, indeed.
So, maybe this is a blind squirrel finding a nut.
Yeah, I'm amazed these guys were allowed to be employed to make this pick, but hey, that's the way it goes.
Mm-hmm.
So one last rookie to get to, or did we talk about? We talked about Trevor Lawrence. We talked about Mac Jones. We talked about Justin Fields.
Did Trey Lance play?
Yes, Trey Lance played, and Trey Lance had probably the most uneven performance, which I don't think anybody's surprised about. He's definitely the biggest quote-unquote project among the first-round quarterbacks. And I think he's the only one in a situation where the quarterback that's sharing the roster with him is probably better than him right now. Like, Jimmy Garoppolo is a better player at the moment than Trey Lance, whereas I'm not confident that Cam Newton at this point is better than Mac Jones because Cam's kind of washed, to be honest. I love Cam, but truth's the truth. And, of course, Trevor Lawrence and Zach Wilson are the only guys on their rosters, basically. I mean, Gardner Minshew, respect, but let's be real. And Justin Fields is definitely better than Andy Dalton. So I think that this is definitely going to be a sit type of year for Trey Lance. He made one really nice throw. You saw sort of the potential, but you also saw some of the issues that we figured might come up. He hasn't played a whole lot of games. I think he only played 1 year at North Dakota State. So there's not a whole lot of game action.
A year and a game.
Yeah. So not a whole lot of reps from him. And I think Corey mentioned when we did the draft podcast, watching his tape, he noticed some inaccuracy delivering the football at times. And, we've seen that can work out. Josh Allen couldn't hit anybody, and now he's Josh Allen. So there's definitely room for improvement for him. And clearly Kyle Shanahan believes in him. Otherwise, he wouldn't have picked him. So there's probably something there, but he's just not ready yet, especially with the 49ers, who appear to be a team that's ready to get back to contending after all the injuries they had last year. This is the team that won the NFC just 2 seasons ago, and when their lineup is healthy, they could easily win the NFC West and get back to the playoffs. So they're certainly not going to want to be wasting a potential contending year with a project at quarterback. So they're going to give Jimmy Garoppolo the burn, knowing Jimmy G. That'll probably last till about week 3 until he gets hurt, and then Trey Lance will have to come in anyway. So,
goodness gracious, what I don't fully understand about this Trey Lance deal is, like, if he's such a project, why did they trade up in the draft to pick number 3 to get him?
Well, he was described as a film junkie, so maybe that's what appealed to Kyle Shanahan.
But still, like,
he was so inaccurate in college, though.
Yeah,
maybe I'm just close-minded. I think his completion percentage was like well under 60%, if I remember correctly.
Well, so was Josh Allen's. He was all over the place his last year. But, like, I don't understand why you trade up for a guy if you believe in so deeply that he's the guy, but he's not ready to start right away. In today's modern NFL, where you don't have an Aaron Rodgers situation where the guy's going to sit for 3 years. You draft somebody in the first round, he needs to be ready to go now. Otherwise, to me, he's not a first rounder. He needs to contribute to your team right away.
Yeah, I don't know.
That part of it seems like a mistake. Now, maybe Trey Lance is going to be a good player. But like, if he's not ready to help the team win right now, then, like, maybe you should have picked somebody else.
Yeah, but we also have to consider who is somebody else that was available. I mean, Trevor Lawrence was clearly not going to be on the board at 3.
Not another quarterback, like another position as well.
Okay, so then you're going to waste your time with Jimmy Garoppolo, who you can't trust to stay healthy. nor can you trust to actually throw the ball in the playoffs. I mean, they needed a quarterback. And
Yeah.
this is the guy they landed on. Now, again, personally, I thought Justin Fields was a better option.
Yeah.
I feel like they should have drafted him.
I did too.
But clearly, for whatever reason, and again, this has been repeated by guys in that locker room, by a lot of the coaches that work there, they love Trey Lance. They think he's going to be something special. And
the Packers love Jordan Love.
That's
He
a fair
played
point.
0.0 snaps last year.
He didn't even suit up. So I get where you're coming from. It seems strange, but if they think that they've got something, again, not in the locker room, not at the practice field every day, they know what they've got. They're going to know before we do whether or not they made a mistake. We don't know yet, so we'll see. But I mean,
there's
do
no
agree.
doubt in my mind that the 49ers know what they're doing more than I know
Absolutely,
what they're doing.
yes.
Right.
But you're right. You're right. It is curious though, because they seemed gung ho to get rid of Jimmy Garoppolo, and then they seemed like they kind of backpedaled. And it's not like Jimmy G was untradeable. I mean, you can't tell me that Bill Belichick wouldn't have taken Jimmy G back for a reasonable price.
Carson Wentz got traded.
Yes, if Carson Wentz
terrible.
can get moved, Jimmy Garoppolo can get moved.
Jared Goff got traded. Like
with that contract too, yes.
Right. Both these guys with their $100 million. Here's $100 million. Please go as far away as possible.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, shoot, Jared Goff got traded for Matt Stafford. With that exchange rate, you could have traded Jimmy G for Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah. Easily.
It just kind of makes me wonder, what were the Lions doing? If you're going to trade Matt
We've been
Stafford,
wondering that for 60 years,
yes,
right?
yes, indeed. So our last topic on the agenda is Jameis versus Taysom, which we kind of alluded to a little bit when we talked about the Saints and the Ravens preseason game. But this matters to me because I'm a Saints guy. This matters to a lot of teams because people think the Saints can still be a wild card team, and I'm inclined to agree with them if things go well.
I saw a lot of people who were split on which player performed better. I felt like it was pretty clearly Jameis.
Yeah, it was. They were split because they don't like Jameis, and they like Taysom. That's what this is about. Jameis Winston carries such an insane amount of bad reputation for a guy who, for the majority of his career, has been a pretty good quarterback. Like, he had the 1 year that he was throwing picks all day.
But he still had a good season that year. I mean, like, I know the 30 picks sucks, but he was a good player that year. It was exciting.
The fact that his 30 picks didn't send him to the bottom of Football Outsiders DYAR tells you that when he wasn't slinging picks, he was doing something good. So the talent has always been apparent. It's just a matter of reining in some of the mistakes. I would rather have to deal with that than Taysom Hill's utter ineffectiveness as the quarterback. I mean,
it's going to be exciting, Eric. It's going to be an entertaining ride.
I'm not entertained.
You're not entertained?
I want Jameis.
Are you not entertained?
He's going to be the full box of chocolates and the ribbon on the outside as well.
Taysom Hill can go back to his gadget role that he had before when Drew was healthy and playing reliably. That's what Taysom can do. He can come in and run some read option. He can go play tight end. He can go cover punts. He can do all that stuff. And hell, all they've let him throw every once in a while. Yeah, they had him out there on kickoffs. Yeah, your future franchise quarterback was out there on special teams.
Yeah, I mean, when Lamar Jackson was a freshman at Louisville, Bobby Petrino had him returning kicks, and Lamar told his mom, and Lamar's mom called Bobby Petrino and said, he's a quarterback. Don't have returning kicks. So, maybe that's what needs to happen if Taysom is the guy.
Yeah, at least he was putting Lamar Jackson in a position where he's the one who's returning the kick. He's respecting his dynamicism to make plays with the ball in his hand, as opposed to Taysom Hill, who's supposed to be out tackling or blocking.
Yeah, he was blocking.
Dynamicism?
Yeah, I was. Is that a word?
It is not. I think you mean dynamism.
Yeah, I think
maybe?
dynamism is the word. Yeah. Well, at least it's not just me this week. All right. But yeah, I'm inclined to agree that Jameis played better. He had the one interception, but it wasn't really that bad of a throw. It was a deep ball that the receiver couldn't corral, and it got tipped up in the air and then got picked off by another guy. I don't work for Pro Football Focus, but I would imagine they did not score that as a turnover-worthy play. So Jameis actually showed some propensity to be able to throw the ball down the field and over the middle of the field, which is something that Taysom Hill can't do. And frankly, it was something that Drew Brees couldn't do last year. So while obviously Brees' experience, his IQ, his accuracy is irreplaceable, and Jameis Winston certainly isn't going to come in and do that, he's got elements of his game that the old version of Drew Brees didn't have. So there is potential here for him to have a pretty nice season for the Saints. I think if he keeps the turnover numbers down to 16 to 18 this season, then he's going to...
Ooh, that's a lot of turnovers.
I know, and that's insane. That's what I'm saying.
And that's less than half as many as he had in his 30 for 30 year.
Yes, indeed. I'm keeping the expectations limited because I don't care who the coach is. Jameis Winston will always be a gunslinger in that manner. He's never going to be a guy who's careful with the football. You can't change that. You can contain some of the bad habits. You can limit it. But he's never going to be a guy that only throws 5 picks in a full season. That's just not who he is. So if you can limit it, though, and get the best out of his best and limit the worst, he could be a Pro Bowler.
I get the sense that, I agree with you. Like, the way I would describe it is that Taysom and Jameis have a similar floor in terms of ability and production. But Jameis has a much higher ceiling. Like, he's capable of doing more stuff. We just need to make him screw it up less.
For the record, dynamicism is a word, but it is not the quality of being dynamic. It is a hypothesis of cognitive science.
Oh, so you were still wrong.
So I was still wrong.
Okay.
But I did not make up a word.
You just misused a word.
I just misused a word,
is
which
that
is arguably worse, but
it's kind of on the same line. So
I typed it in our sheet here, and it automatically changed it to dynamism.
Well, did you spell dynamicism with 2 S's, or did you put dynamicism? Because that's how
I wrote dynamicism.
Oh, that's clearly not what you meant either. You meant it with a C. If you were to type it out, you would have typed it out with a C.
It should be with a C. So, and that's what Evan did. So, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, we got one more football story. It's about Evan's Atlanta Falcons. Not really Evan's team, but his current home team, or at least the one that's in his backyard currently. They have 100% vaccination rates among their players. So,
good for them.
Good for them. Happy to hear it. Hopefully
might actually become an Atlanta Falcons fan this year.
Not going to happen for me.
Good luck with that.
Yeah, that's you're signing up for the wrong thing if you want to be a Falcons fan.
Jumping on the bandwagon after Julio is gone. What am I getting
Jumping on the bandwagon
into?
after it's been shot with a torpedo. Like,
yeah, you're definitely buying low. That's for sure. If you're getting in on the Falcons now, so
on the whole for the league, I mean the numbers are looking pretty good right now. 88.5% of players have had at least one shot of the vaccine. 20 teams are above 90%. 8 are above 95%. The Washington football team's numbers have risen recently. And the league can't mandate the vaccine. I think that
why can't they?
I think that if it was no longer just authorized under emergency use, if it got full authorization, I think the league could mandate it if they chose to. I've heard some inklings of different groups in Maryland potentially mandating it after that happens, but saying that they can't for one reason or another until that happens. I don't know, as far as legality, how that works, but
the NFL is a private business. They can do whatever they want.
One would think so. And I mean, there have been other entities that have started to mandate the vaccine for employees. So I don't really see why they couldn't, but
they mandated it for all the coaches and staff. Like, everybody who works for the NFL has to be vaccinated against COVID-19 except the players. Yeah. Everybody else is vaccinated already. So, so the players are just milling around. Like,
so you've got players who have gotten vaccinated recently, like Ryan Tannehill, who said that he would not have gotten the vaccine without the protocols that are being enforced for unvaccinated players. Then you've got guys like Cole Beasley who are still, arguing against it. And in fact, he made a rap song recently called, saying that there ain't no vaccination for him.
Who are we talking about?
Cole Beasley. He made a rap song.
Can we send him adrift on a pontoon boat, please?
I would love that.
I will go down to South America and push. Like, just what?
Enough of this crap. I don't care about
just get the
Beasley
vaccine. I don't care how you feel about it. Just get the vaccine and shut up. That's all it is.
Yeah. So numbers are rising, and in fact, I think the NFL might actually be over 90% now. That article I was looking at was a few days old. So I think that those numbers are climbing, continuing to climb. So,
that's good.
So no, I mean that is good, and obviously with this Delta variant, there are some issues with breakthrough cases here and there. The Colts opened training camp without Frank Wright because even though he is vaccinated, he tested positive for COVID-19. So you are going to get those breakthrough cases here and there. But the more of us who are vaccinated, on one hand, the higher percentage of cases will be breakthrough cases because there are more vaccinated people, but the fewer total cases there will be. And so while the percentage of cases that are breakthrough cases might increase, the total number of breakthrough cases will decrease, and it will help to keep us from continuing to have more and more variants come out.
Okay, well that wraps up our football topics for this week. Do you guys have anything else to throw in before we wrap up the show?
No. I guess on that note, I'll give a shout out to DeMatha for going ahead and mandating the vaccine for all of their coaches. I'm pretty happy about that decision. And I think Elizabeth Seton High School had already done that, so shout out to them as well. And hopefully more schools and teams and organizations and leagues follow suit, and hopefully the schools eventually follow suit too.
Yeah. Did you have your kids running in that blazing heat on Friday?
Well, Friday there was a lot of lightning in the area, so we had to move inside. Thursday was a hot day with no rain, and it was too hot for us to be outside. We were told we had to move inside. Today was perfect though. Overcast, high 70s, low 80s, a little bit of a mist. It was perfect for a long run today.
Oh, Shaper would have us running in the blazing heat and thunderstorms and everything.
They've updated protocols on what is acceptable.
Kids not getting electrocuted.
That
They've
and
updated the
also,
protocol.
trying to make sure that nobody passes out and suffers heat stroke.
Yeah,
that would not
forgive
be
me
good.
for going, back in my day, we used to run in the hot sun till we died. And then we had to keep going. Uphill in the snow, both ways.
Both ways, yep. Yes, indeedy.
Shout out to everybody who's observing National Roller Coaster Day. Because that's a thing, apparently. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Apparently it was National Lefty Day the other day. So I made sure to tell Eric and Sean that, right-handers matter.
Yes. Yes. Right-handed people matter.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah. Only right-handed people matter.
Yeah, that's
or was
how.
It all-handed people matter?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, that's what I said. I said both hands matter. That's what I said.
Yeah.
I said both hands matter.
Yeah. Yeah, we know you attention whore righties. Just everything has to be about you.
I think Sean said he spit his drink on his laptop when I said that.
Yeah. Well, I was not as amused. Okay, so I've got a couple shout-outs. One shout-out to Alex Smith. He's taken a job with ESPN as an analyst. It's good to have him stay in the public light after all that he's been through. Great dude, smart guy. He gave an excellent interview on various places, but also with particularly with Colin Cowherd. I watched him sit down for a very lengthy interview on his show a couple weeks back.
Oh, really?
And he was terrific. So I recommend you check that out.
Yeah.
He was awesome. And shout out to Marcus Smart of the Celtics, who is yet another guard who is making more money than Dennis Schroeder, as the Celtics gave him a 4-year, $77 million extension. So he's getting paid. Not quite a max contract, but the most he could have signed for. So he'll be making 3 times the amount of Dennis Schroeder while potentially coming off the bench behind him.
Oh,
So,
Schroeder.
Yeah.
Is
I
not
do
a
want to
very
add
shrewd negotiator.
the Orioles
Okay,
have
that's-
scored a run. Trey Mancini doubled to score Cedric Mullins.
Oh,
So
Yay.
damn it.
interpret that for your fantasy matchup
Well,
as you
Trey
wish.
Mancini and Cedric Mullins now have identical scores today. So
Yeah, well,
there's that.
I'm up 4.75 points despite Corey
Yeah.
having a starting pitcher who's not
because he's
pitching
sucking
well.
right
Yeah,
now.
he's not doing much. So
He's got half a point after
start
3 and
Matt
2
Harvey?
thirds. No, I started. What is his first name?
Quantrill?
Quantrill.
Cal
Chad.
Quantrill, he pitches for the Indians.
He's been really good lately.
Well,
He's not pitching very well today.
He's getting lit up by the Twins of all teams. Too.
Yeah.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah.
For you, not for me.
Yeah.
Okay, so everybody good with shout-outs? Anybody else you want to tell that you love them or anything like that?
I think that's it.
Okay.
Shout out to you guys for seeing you in person rather than just an arrangement of little lights on my computer screen. Good to see you guys again. First time in 80 some episodes or something like that.
Yep.
Yeah. It was great to have you here, and look forward to many more of those soon to come. I hope.
Yes. Post COVID and whatnot.
And as long as Eric put it the way he did, I guess, I love you, Rashonda. Give a shout out to my girlfriend.
Oh, well, there you go.
Yes.
Just in case she's listening and has made it to this point in the show.
That's
She
very
does
not
listen from
listening.
time to time.
That's very sweet of you, Corey. All right,
Nobody
so
listens to this. Who's listening now?
oh my goodness. All right, well, thank you everybody for tuning in. This is episode 155 of the Sports Ballers podcast. Just a reminder, we are in season 4 now. This is our 3rd episode of the 4th season.
Sorry. One more thing. Shout out to Joey Votto, who just got career hit number 2,000, career home run number 300, and career RBI 1,000, all in the same season.
The same.
I don't think it was on the same hit though.
In the same season?
Yeah, he's done all those this season.
Oh, but not all in one
It
swing.
sounds like that might not have been all in one day. It was definitely some clickbait headline on the push notification.
So you paused my wrap up for.
I apologize.
Yeah, you should.
I
you should be sorry. Jeez. God. I'm just so irritated now. I was looking forward to something cool, and instead I got that. So, fart noise.
All
Anyway,
in the same season. Like, oh, okay.
Anyway, so you guys can follow us on Twitter at SportsBallers18. You can follow us individually. Corey is at Corey Puffett. I am at Quagmire67. Evan is at Evan_Ash13. You can follow us at all the major podcast providers, Apple, Spotify, Google, Amazon, however you get it. I'm sure we'll probably be on any others if you decide to change up, so just look for Sports Ballers. You can also follow us on Facebook. You can email us and tell us how much we suck or how great we are or whatever. Make fun of me for my word fumbleitis today if you're feeling so inclined. Our email is thesportsballers@gmail.com. So thank you guys again for tuning in. Next week we'll probably have a little more preseason discussion, some baseball stuff going on as well, and any other tricklings from college football or the NBA or other sports. So keep updated with us. We'll keep you informed and hopefully entertained. Thank you for tuning in, and we will see you next week.